of your time, treasure, and talent to help your family members and those who have been entrusted to your care. I'm going to be going into the different types of elder abuse that there are. First of all, it takes many forms. Some of the types of abuse are intimidation or threats. Some involve neglect and financial misdealings with the mentally and physically incapable elders. And this is just, it's a horrible thing when you see this. When somebody takes advantage of a elderly person and just takes their finances and just does them wrong. And there's another thing out there that's happening in our society that should be addressed by the government as they have oversight of this. But there are story after story after story of an elderly person that has passed away, and their body is somehow concealed, and nobody's let know that this person has died. And they collect their pension and or Social Security checks for years and years and years and years after this person has died. I think it would behoove our government when they see someone is 105 years old or 100 years old and still receiving Medicare and Medicaid and all these other benefits, that maybe they should go out and check to see, just drop by and say, hey, we want to wish so-and-so a happy 100th birthday. Can we talk to them? Can we see them? We'd just like to, check up on them. Well, and another thing, another way that they can track it is if you have an elderly person, 100 years old or at an advanced age, and you're paying out Social Security checks to them month after month after month, and never seeing any Medicaid expenses for the same person, meaning they're not having any medical expenses year after year after year at that kind of age, not even exams, that would seem to me it would throw up a little flag for the government to be able to say, hey, maybe something's amiss here. Here's this person at a very advanced elderly age, and they're not having any medical issues. They're never going to the doctor, but we're paying out these checks over and over and over again. So it might want to, just a hint to the government to take a look at such things and see if they can't discover some fraud in these areas. So again, we were talking about the different types of abuse, and the first abuse that I want to touch on is physical abuse. The physical elder abuse is non-accidental use of force against an elderly person that results in physical pain, injury, or impairment. Such abuses include not only physical assaults, such as hitting or shoving, but inappropriate use of drugs, restraints, or confinement. Okay? So if you see an elderly person and they have a neighbor or friend or acquaintance or your father or mother or whoever, and they're being taken care of by a caregiver, and you see marks around their wrists where it looks like they've been tied and restrained, or you see, bruises on them, those types of things, you need to start asking questions. And to every family member of any elderly person, you need to be in contact with these elderly people. Now, don't tell me you can't contact people in this day and age. Man, we got phones on our hips. We got phones in our cars. We have Skype. We have all sorts of ways of contacting our elderly members of our society or people that are around them. You need to be calling and checking on them. Don't forget about grandma or grandpa in the nursing home. You need to be contacting them and finding out how things are going, asking questions, checking up on them physically, checking on their well-being. Again, asking questions. Don't just take things for granted that everything's all right, that so-and-so wouldn't do this or so-and-so wouldn't do that. You need to check and make sure things are all right with your elderly parents and relatives and caregivers. The next abuse is emotional abuse. In emotional or psychological abuse, people speak to or treat elderly persons in ways that cause emotional pain or distress. Verbal forms of emotional elder abuse include intimidation through yelling or threats. So if you're hearing yelling coming from the house next door, or you're in a home where a elderly person is being yelled at, you need to say something. Next thing is humiliation and ridicule. That's another form of abuse. Habitual blaming or scapegoating, where they're telling the elder that they're the cause of all the problems in the world, and that they're all because of them, and that's not right to do that to them. Nonverbal psychological elder abuse can also take the form of ignoring the elderly person. Sometimes people just ignore them when they're yelling and they're calling for help. They're just being ignored. Or isolating an elder from friends or activities. This is a big one. When you see an elderly person being isolated from friends and activities, this should throw up a huge red flag to you that there is something wrong and something needs to be done. Here's a verse from the Bible that also speaks to this. It says, Psalms 103, verse 6, "The Lord works righteousness and justice for all who are oppressed." And I want to tell you today that if you're among this group that is oppressing or mistreating elderly people, God fights for them. God works for them. And you will answer for what you're doing and what you have done. So if you're having a problem, if this is an unintentional thing, you're depressed, you're taking care of somebody, you're overwhelmed, you need to get help. You need to call out to someone else and say, hey, I got a problem with taking care of so-and-so. It's just overwhelming for me. Don't strike out against the person you're taking care of. Seek help. Call family members. Do whatever it needs you to do to make sure that person is safe and well cared for and loved. Next one is very disturbing. It's sexual abuse of the elderly, and there have been some famous cases of this with hidden cameras and those types of things where elders have been abused by people. This is absolutely a disgusting thing. It should not take place, but it is and does take place in our society, and so we need to address it. But obviously, sexual abuse is unwanted sexual contact with someone else, but not only that is showing elderly persons pornographic materials, forcing the person to watch sex acts, or forcing the elder to undress is also considered sexual elder abuse. So if you hear or see of anything like this, you really need to take action. Call your social service agencies in the state or wherever you are, or the police, and get them involved and get this issue taken care of, because these people do not deserve this. They're elderly, and because they're weak, people are taking advantage of them. And I'd just like to say a theme that runs throughout the Bible, and it runs through every issue that I deal with this on this show, Human Rights and Justice for All, is that people who are strong are taking advantage of weak people. That is what this show is all about, and exposing people who are strong taking advantage of weak people. And that could be political strength, that could be physical strength, that could be, just in many different ways that it happens. But it's always the strong taking advantage of the weak. When you see somebody weak, what should pop into your mind is not, how can I take advantage of this person and get something for myself? What should pop into your mind is that how can I help this weak person? How can I help them? How can I strengthen them? How can I benefit them? Not what can I get from them and what can I do to them that will make me happier. So if you've got that mindset, you need to get your mindset changed and get it right, because God knows the thoughts and the intents of your heart. He knows them even afar off, meaning that he knows them even before you think them. And he knows your character and what you're all about. So if you are thinking these types of thoughts about abusing other people or taking advantage of other people, you need to get things right with Jesus and change your attitude and change your way of dealing with people. Okay, moving on from sexual abuse, we go into neglect and or abandonment by caregivers. Okay, elder neglect, failure to fulfill a caretaker obligation, constitutes more than half of all reported cases of elder abuse. It can be intentional or unintentional, based on factors such as ignorance or denial that the elderly charge needs as much care as he or she does. This means that if you got a person who's kind of cantankerous and they're saying, I don't need help, I don't need whatever, we should respect their needs and respect what their wishes are, but we also should be checking into what's really going on, because sometimes people are experiencing dementia. And again, don't use dementia as a reason to take advantage of elderly people. Just because they're having dementia and they're not dealing with reality in some cases, we still need to respect them, but we also need to check on their welfare and their needs. If someone is saying, I don't need any help or whatever, and you go into their home and it's an absolute mess, it's unsanitary, they're not eating right, they're not taking their medications right, well, they need more help than what they think they do. Or even, and they may not want you to get involved, but you got to do something. You just can't let them suffer in neglect. Again, this is half of all reported cases. So out of the 250,000 reported cases, or 500,000 reported cases, 250,000 of them were for straight up neglect. Next is financial exploitation, and this happens quite a bit, and it's unreported. This involves unauthorized use of an elderly person's funds or property, either by a caregiver or by an outside scam artist. Now, again, you oppress the poor and the needy and the weak, and you're going to get got, and you're going to get got by God, not by anybody else. The police might catch up with you, but I won't worry about them so much as I would getting caught by God and getting dealt with by Him, because He avenges the weak and the poor, and He takes care of them. Let's look at Psalms chapter 72, verse 4. It says, May He defend the cause of the poor of the people, and give deliverance to the children of the needy, and crush the oppressor. So if you're talking about strong words, these are words directly from God saying He's going to crush you if you are oppressing the weak and the needy. And especially in this case, the elderly. If you're abusing their finances, stop it. If you can't help stop yourself, then get somebody else in to help and get out of there and get away from them and stop abusing them. Okay, here we go with the types of unscrupulous financial exploitation. Misuse of an elder's personal checks, credit cards, and accounts. Stealing cash, income checks, and household goods. Forging the elder's signature. Engaging in identity theft. This is a big one. Typical rackets that target elders include announcements of prize that elderly person has won but must pay money to claim this prize. If you hear your elderly people around you saying that, oh, they won this big prize, you start asking some questions. Well, what did it involve? Did you have to give anything for it? Ask some questions. Next is phony charities, where they come on the TV or the radio, or they come through mail and they say, oh, children are dying in XYZ place, and we just want you to give whatever you can, or contact this number, and then once they get them on the line, they try to take them for everything they can. And then the last thing is in investment fraud, where people are telling them, contacting them and saying, hey, if you'll invest in this, you'll get this